Alas, now prominent liberal entertainers are turning on Bumblin Biden. In this video, we're going to look at two leftists in particular who are openly recognizing that Trump would never have let the world fall apart the way Biden has. We're going to find out why these liberals are absolutely right, and stick with me at the very end of this video when I'll reveal how in the end, these two liberals have only themselves to blame. You are not going to want to miss this. Greetings, everyone. Dr. Stevie with you. Great to be with you. As always, I am your daily fake news antidote. So come on into your Patriot Professor's Den. We're helping to think better so you can feel better in these crazy and turbulent times. If you haven't done so, you know what to do. Make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. Now, before we begin, make sure to click on that link below and support this channel by visiting our awesome merch store that has all kinds of t-shirts and swag for you and the Patriots in your life. We got our awesome line of Let's Go Brandon t-shirts. I'm wearing today my all things woke everything woke turns to shit. You know who said that. Truer words have never been spoken. The most common feedback that we get is how often random people are going to come up to you and give you these super awesome compliments on your shirts when you're wearing them out in public. It's so cool. Your purchases will, of course, be spreading Patriot hope as well as supporting this channel. So make sure to click on that link below or go to store.turleytalks.com. That is store.turleytalks.com. Can't thank you enough, gang. All right, gang, let's dive right in here. If the Democrats thought that the Ukraine crisis was going to help Biden's poll numbers, at least long term, they were in for a very, very rude awakening, because now it really does appear that many on the left are indeed abandoning Biden. We're calling it Biden remorse on this channel. There was, of course, a poll several months back that found that 20% of Biden's voters regretted their vote. Instead of buyer's remorse, they had Biden's remorse. But that actually only gets worse with the whole Ukraine crisis. That isn't the latest defections by two prominent leftist entertainers are any indicator. Let's start with Trevor Noah, the ultra-liberal host of Comedy Central's The Daily Show. In an opening monologue in one of his recent episodes, Noah brought up the widely reported story that the leaders of Saudi Arabia and United Arab Emirates refused to take Biden's calls when he tried to reach out to them to pressure them to sanction Russia. We talked about this in one of our videos late last week. It was a humiliating snub by two major oil powers, and it was their way of saying that when it comes to this crisis of Russia and Ukraine, what Biden thinks and does is irrelevant to us. And keep in mind, this snub came on the heels of Biden begging Saudi Arabia to increase their oil production, and Saudi Arabia told him to take a hike. They're refusing to increase their oil production, even after Biden groveled before them to do it. So Trevor Noah brings this embarrassment up, and here's what he had to say about it. Check it out.
There's no denying that Saudi Arabia isn't playing ball with Joe Biden. And you know what? You can say what you want, but this would have never happened to Donald Trump. Never. No one was ever ignoring Donald Trump's calls. Yeah, because if you ignored Donald Trump's calls, you didn't know how he would respond. Maybe he'd send an angry tweet, or maybe he'd just ban your country from everything. You don't know. That's why I bet in these situations, Biden actually wishes that he could hire Trump to step in as President Wildcard. You know, just keep everyone on their toes. Because if Trump was calling, you best believe the UAE, they'll be racing to pick up the phone. Oh, Mr. Trump, we're here, hello? Too late, Ahmed. You made me wait 2 rings. We're bombing the UAE and the UFC, just in case.
That was good, all right? President Wildcard for foreign affairs. And he's right. Trevor Noah is absolutely right. Part of what made Trump so successful geopolitically was his unpredictability. How do you successfully goad or prod a major nuclear superpower if you don't know how it's going to respond? You can't. Any and all contingency plans go out the window since contingencies are based on a certain level of rational predictability. But Noah wasn't the only liberal entertainer noticing that Putin is treating Biden very differently than how he treated Trump. Bill Maher, on his latest show, openly declared that asking why Putin invaded under Biden and not Trump is a question very much worth pondering. Why is it that Putin chose to invade Ukraine under Biden? Now, keep in mind, we can add Obama to that equation as well, can't we? After all, Russia annexed Crimea under Obama. So it seems every time Biden is in office, either as president or vice president, Russia expands its territory. Why is that? Well, we're going to answer that. But first, we should note that at least at one level, what leftists like Maher and Noah are saying here is just simply going with the tide of public opinion. The Hill just published the results of a Harvard-Harris survey that was utterly devastating for Biden. According to the poll, 62% of American voters believe the Russian President Vladimir Putin would never have invaded Ukraine had President Trump still been in office. Let that hit you. 62%. And that includes 38% of Democrats believing that. So we can see that Maher and Noah aren't alone here. Nearly 4 in 10 of their liberal ilk also recognize that were Trump still in office, Putin would never have invaded Ukraine. And there's significant evidence to back that up. We talked about this on another video a couple of weeks back. Victor Davis Hanson had a great piece out entitled Why Putin Has Not Been Deterred. And it's an excellent analysis contrasting Trump's policies with Bumblin Biden's policies and why those policies result in such different outcomes with regard to Russia and Russia's actions. So when Trump was in power, his energy policy, which centered on a mass increase in domestic oil and gas, it had the effect of basically crashing Russian oil prices. And the key to that is that without the leverage of energy supply, Putin had very little political leverage to do whatever he wanted geopolitically. I just don't think we realize how key energy independence was to Trump's vision of stabilizing the geopolitical order. Energy independence kept both Russia and Middle East nations on their heels and effectively cut them off from acting on any grievances they have with their neighbors. And then you add Trump's taking on China for 4 years, Trump hammering Russia's number one ally and trade partner. You look at how Trump treated North Korea, right? Telling Kim Jong-un, my nuclear button is bigger than yours. You add to that Trump's ordering the assassination of the Iranian General Soleimani, his crushing of ISIS in Syria. There was no way that Putin was going to do anything like what we're seeing today simply because he had no idea how Trump would respond. Trump had full command of the geopolitical order in a way that Bumblin Biden has completely floundered. Biden has deliberately squandered our energy independence, all in the name of left-wing environmentalism. And because of that, Russia's been able to go back to dictating oil prices and exercising significant geopolitical leverage by threatening to turn off the gas supply. At the same time, this past August, you, of course, had the embarrassing, the humiliating botched troop withdrawal from Kabul that didn't just make America weaker on the world stage. It certainly did that. But it also had the inadvertent effect of making Russia stronger by putting Russia, and most particularly Putin, at the center of the world stage. Again, we did videos on this. Britain in particular turned to Russia for what they called Russia's, quote, moderating influence over the Taliban. Macron did the very same thing. Germany did the very same thing. Much of the world moved towards Moscow after the fall of Kabul. And they turned their backs on the feckless leadership in Washington, D.C. And then on top of all that, Putin looks at the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, right, General Milley, and sees him being more concerned about white privilege than he was about the Afghanistan troop withdrawal. All of this feeds into Putin's sense that the Biden administration is very, very weak and very, very woke. And the combination of those two dynamics has only served to embolden Russia on the world stage. And no one set the stage for this weakness and wokeness more than Trevor Noah and Bill Maher, ironically. They spent 4 straight years mocking and ridiculing President Trump, blinded by their partisan bitterness from seeing how Trump's governance was precisely the kind that we needed and desperately need now. I could think of few things more painfully ironic than these two would-be comedians slamming Trump for being a clown, all the while celebrating policies and politicians that enacted the very weakness and wokeness that is ultimately responsible for tearing this world apart. I'm glad it seems that these two and many of their liberal ilk are finally seeing the light, however partially. Unfortunately, It all appears to be too little, too late. Now, before we go, you will definitely want to check out my latest video I just uploaded on the real reason Putin is invading Ukraine. It's going to answer a lot of your questions, and you're not going to want to miss it. So make sure to click on that link, and I'll see you over there. God bless.